Hi, welcome to another edition of Reflections. I'm your host, De'Onte Brewer. Today is our holiday show for the year 2025. I ask you, what's your favorite holiday memory, or what do the holidays mean to you? Today we'll discuss some of those answers and questions, and hopefully you'll have a great holiday season. Again, remember to be bold, be you, and be blessed, and happy holidays. What do the holidays mean to you? The holidays mean many things to me. When I think of the word holidays, I think of gifts and family and food, just so many different memories. However, one I should say image comes up in mind when I think of the holidays, and I think of the birth of baby Jesus. The three wise men presenting their gifts to baby Jesus. And from that, we celebrate Christmas. We observe December 25th as the day of Christ's birth. Christ having to be a baby first, and then he grew into manhood. And the three wise men brought three gifts. They presented three gifts to baby Jesus: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And gold represented Jesus's kingship, frankincense, his divinity and priestly role, and myrrh was a resin used for embalming, which foreshadowed his death, burial, and ultimate resurrection. I think of those three gifts and how much they mean, or meant to, baby Jesus in his life. And as I stated earlier, we give gifts to people during the holiday season for Christmas, especially. Parents go out of their way every year, to buy those material gifts for their children, toys and clothes and shoes. And, adults buy gifts for other adults. And, we are a gift obsessed culture. We go out of our way, at the last minute to buy gifts, or some people start shopping earlier. And a gift is so important to people. I myself am the recipient of gifts, but I buy gifts for myself. This sweater that I'm wearing is a gift to myself. I ordered it from one of my favorite retailers. My shoes that I'm wearing, I know you can't see them, but it's another gift to myself. I brought at a mall in Pennsylvania, and the shoes are they're Stacy Adams, which is one of my favorite style of shoes. But gifts, I'm just saying gifts are very important, but I go back and think to those gifts that were presented to baby Jesus. Those are gifts that money can't buy, and so I want you to ask yourself, I guess maybe the meaning that you're putting into gifts, not so much the meaning, but we can't, there's no gift, that you can buy that, is important enough as what those wise men presented to baby Jesus. But you don't have to wait, until the holidays to bestow gifts upon people. Every day of the year, you can, give gifts to people or receive gifts, and those gifts don't have to always be material gifts. Material gifts are nice, but a smile, an encouragement, those are gifts, that are far more important, than a pair of shoes or a shirt, because one would outgrow shoes, or a shirt, shoes get dirty and they go out of style, and, shirts, go out of style. But those gifts, such as, being kind and compassionate, they never go out of style, and and not only in today's society, but we've just always needed that. I think today, people, take it for granted. They feel like they don't have to, bestow kindness, certainly on people that they don't know. They save that for friends and family, but it's just a gift that, I mean, it's learned, when you're growing up, and if from the heart you would just use that gift all throughout your life, remembering to be kind and compassionate and checking on people. And if you know that, there's maybe a family that's having a hard time, offering to purchase some food from that family, or giving gift cards. In today's society, we love gift cards, or, helping the family's kids out by purchasing toys. Those are gifts that go a long way, and you don't have to wait to the holidays. If you know that someone is maybe struggling with, the blues, as I like to call it, for the holiday season, people experience loneliness for different reasons or sadness. You could offer to take that person out to lunch or maybe go hang out with that person. These are gifts that are just so important. We shouldn't wait until the holiday season. It should be something that we're practicing all year. I don't want to make it seem like, I'm saying that giving gifts and receiving gifts are superficial and shallow, but we don't have to wait until the holidays. I know there's charities such as the Salvation Army and, there's a rescue mission here. They take donations all year. We don't have to, I think sometimes Americans perhaps feel pity, during the holidays. And well, I'll do a little bit of this, for this organization but all through the year, organizations, like St. Jude's and Shriners, accept donations for, sick children and their families. That money, and you don't have to give this large, exorbitant gift, whatever you can, afford, it goes a long way. And so I think that, or I feel that we shouldn't just wait for the holidays, kindness begins at home, charity begins at home, and you can all year, I don't wait until the holidays, just to be kind and, to bestow gifts all year. I, make myself available to my family and friends, and let them know I'm here, for you. What do you need? How can I help? And so I think that, we should be reminded of that, every now and then. And, we should teach our children, it's better to give than to receive. Children, can be very entitled, and feel it's all about them. And as when you're young, you do feel that way, but it's important to teach your children that, there's homelessness in the world and that there's hunger in the world, and perhaps even their friends, and their friends' families can be suffering, and so it's, you teach children at a young age, to think of others other than themselves, and I think that the world would be a better place. When I was growing up, that was something that was taught. People seemed to be more aware, that there were others, that needed things, and, families didn't mind looking out for each other and helping each other. And now it seems like people, more stay within their own, house and yard, that they choose not really to look out, for others. I hear people say, when it comes to homelessness, oh, those people, they choose to be that way. They don't want to work, and, they choose to live out on the street. And that could be very well true for some people, but not all people, choose to be homeless. There are reasons why, that they are homeless. It could be a mental issue, and so just being cognizant of that and, being kind and considerate towards that, I think it's fell out of favor. And so I wanted to, do this show to remind us, that we can give, all year long. We just don't have to wait for the holidays to be sentimental, but it counts, and it's just as important all throughout the year. As earlier I talked about my memories, or what the holidays mean to me, family. There are so many memories that I have attached to the holiday season. Growing up here in Fort Wayne, it snowed. Seems like it snowed a lot back then, and we were so excited. My brother and I, at the time, it was just my brother and I, to see our gifts, under the tree, and then to go outside and make snow angels. I remember making snow angels, and that being so much fun. And as I got older, a little older, we moved to Florida, and there were holiday memories attached to that. One being, I remember our first Christmas, there was no snow, and we didn't understand that, living north, then moving south, there was no snow. It was hot outside, and people were barbecuing on top of that. And I just looked at my mom and dad and was like, what in the world is going on? But I do remember my parents taking my brother and I to have a picture with Santa Claus. Our first Christmas. We probably were at some mall somewhere, and I can still remember that. I think I had on like a red sweatsuit or something, and that picture, I haven't seen that picture in a long time, but that was, certainly a great memory attached to, my early days in Florida. And then as I got a little bit older, kind of adolescence, 10, 11, I had asked my parents for a desk, a writing desk. My parents knew that I loved books and stuff like that. But I wanted a desk that particular year. I was about 11. And, I had asked them in advance. And I remember waking up on Christmas, and, I got my other gifts, and I was looking for my desk. And my mom says, son, my parents said, son, we really tried. We'd found a desk, but we just couldn't get it through the door. It was too big, and da-da-da-da-da. And oh, my heart just fell to the floor because I wanted that desk. And so it says, okay. And then I think we had finished wrapping up, and my mom was like, okay, well, it's time to start cleaning up, the wrapping paper. And my mom says, well, wait a minute, come help me, with this. And so I followed my mom in another room. She was like, well, open that door. And in that, my desk was in there, and my parents had wrapped it, with a bow. They'd brought that desk from a furniture store, and it was brand new and had a red bow on it, and I just was in love with that desk and that red bow. And so that was just a great memory for me, to get my desk. And so, that was a great memory. And then as a teenager, I remember after I got my first job, I was able to buy, gifts for the whole family, with a paycheck. And I remember I had brought my mom some pearls and whatever else I brought, but I felt proud to, be able to give back to my family, because my mom and dad had always made sure us kids, by the time it was my siblings, my two brothers and my sister, and they would go out of their way to get everything we wanted, and then to have a good dinner afterwards. And so I was able, at 16 to, give back, and to see my parents, they were really proud, that I had started working, and, they taught me to save money, but then that I, was using my money to buy gifts. And so, as a teenager, that felt good. And so, after I had gotten, out of high school, coming back to Fort Wayne, I can think about, some great holiday memories. with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother and grandfather at their house. And oh, my grandmother cooked, all the food, seems like in the world. That turkey was just huge, and the dressing, and we'd have family come over, and then we'd go over to other family members' houses, and gifts for Christmas. We would, my brothers and sister and I, by that time had gotten older and start buying gifts, for our grandparents, and not only our parents, but grandparents. And so those were great holiday memories. I was older then, and it's different now. I'm thankful, that the love is still there, but, Christmas and the holidays just feel so different now that the older generation, a lot of the older generation have started to pass away. On my father's side of the family, my grandmother would cook, and we would go to her house, and just all of the cousins would be there, and and my other grandmother, my father's mother, was just as good of a cook too, but the older generations passed away. And so, as I stated, the love is still there, and the great food and family, but it just seems like the holidays just feel so different now than they did, 20 and 30 and even 40 years ago. Seems like time, there's just not enough time. Time just goes by so fast, and the holidays come in, Thanksgiving comes, and then Christmas, and, the New Year, and then it's over with, and so I miss those days when there was so much family around, and, we would visit with each other, and, the elderly would cook, and, would share stories and stuff like that, when it's just, that time has passed, but I hold those holiday memories in my heart, when, I continue to make new memories, but I certainly hold those in my heart. Was thankful this year, within my immediate family. We were gifted with a niece. My sister and brother-in-law, gave us a niece and granddaughter, and so that's certainly been a treat. I continue to be thankful, for my mother and father and my two brothers, my sister and brother-in-law, my two nephews, my grandfathers and aunts, uncles, and cousins on both sides. I am thankful for life, I am thankful for life, and the lessons that I've learned. I've grown this year, and just very appreciative of my salvation and my journey thus far. And I wish for my viewers, that you all have a great, happy holiday season, and that you remember what's most important. It's nice to give gifts, and do the Black Friday shopping and the rush hour shopping, and those nice large TVs I like to see mounted on walls, and clothing. I love clothing, and shoes and jeans and all those things. It's nice to give those gifts, and gift cards. I love gift cards, Starbucks gift cards, and Barnes and Noble gift cards, even an Abercrombie and Fitch gift card, but those gifts that money can't buy, kindness and compassion, those never go out of style, and we don't have to wait, until the holidays to give those gifts. You can all throughout the year, whether it's to someone on the street, to a neighbor or a friend in need, even to someone you work with, you can be there for those people. But don't forget to take care of yourself. You can give to others, but take care of yourself. The holidays can be very stressful on people. Give yourself that care and compassion that you would others. For some people that's exercising and it's eating right, and, do whatever you can to stay in the right frame of mind. Don't let circumstances get you down. if they do, don't stay there for long. Know that there's always a new day to start over, and things are never as worse as they seem. And so I wanted to just share that today. There's so many memories that I have attached to the holidays. Different music. I think of my gospel music that I so love. My favorite songs, that I listen to, and there are shows, that I like to watch that remind me of the holidays. And I just find joy and comfort. I may not have everything I want for the holidays, but I have salvation, and I have the love of a family, and really I have the things that I really need. You have to ask yourself, is it something, is it a want, versus, do I need it? And so, if you have, the love of a family, and, the love of a significant other, and, a job and a car, a nice place to lay your head, then you have the things you need, and so happy holidays to all of my listeners and viewers. I'm thankful for you, for continuing to watch and support Reflections all these years. This is, I believe, the 5th or 6th holiday show that I've done, and so I'm so thankful and grateful for you. We had just had Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope everyone have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening and sharing. Remember to always be bold, be you, be blessed. God bless.